improvement from last year.
Last
Hooray, you guys,
confused.
Santa Claus brought us the microphone. So big thank you to Linda Easterbrooks, Tech Coach Linda at the Winthrop Workspace. I would like to give her a round of applause because this PowerPoint would not have happened if it wasn't for Linda. And I have her business card. She's right on Main Street. Okay, so if you grab your brochure that I made. I'm going to first start with an acknowledgement that's very important to me. And I want to thank the orchardists, farmers from the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s up to the 20th century. It's very important that we recognize how hard orcharding is and farming. It's very hard work. Before the settlers came, though, there were the Abenaki in this area, and this is their land, in my opinion. And I just want to honor that because they were here first. So that's the first slide. This happens to be in East Winthrop in my backyard, and I'm very fortunate. So this is technically called Mears Stream. And on the other side of Mears, so East Winthrop is on this side, and Reedfield and Manchester are on the other side. It's divided. I am the easternmost eastern corner of East Winthrop, literally. Okay, so a variety of topics tonight. We are concentrating on the Fairbanks apple. And the Rich Pete here, met him a while ago. I don't actually remember how I met you originally, Pete. When I started Apple research, first of all, let me back up a second. I'm a registered nurse full-time with hospice with Maine General. That's my primary job, full-time mom. And I was very fortunate to grow up on a self-sustaining organic farm in Litchfield, Maine. So thanks, Mom and Dad. Hard work. I remember hauling hot water to pigs in the middle of winter at 6 in the morning before school. My brothers and I and my sister begrudgingly did that, and splitting and stacking wood. But years later, we look back and we're really, really grateful for those experiences. So grew up picking apples in Monmouth at Schick's Orchards, and ate apples until my stomach hurt. I think we've all had that experience. Was always very curious about apples and their names. And a particular apple in particular was the Northern Spy, my very favorite apple of all time. Mark, I'm gonna have, is Mark's okay? Yes, I have to go pick some apples at Mark's. And I started volunteering at Common Ground Fair many, many years ago and met a gentleman by the name of John Bunker. You will see a photo of him later. And I call him the Apple Whisperer of Maine. He's an apple historian. When you work at Common Ground Fair, I'm usually there anywhere from Wednesday or Thursday night to Sunday. When you work at the fair, you don't get a lot of time to actually see the fair, and as a volunteer. And the one thing that I always would do was make sure that I had a chance to go see John Bunker at the Fedco tree and seed area and listen to one of his talks. So being curious about the naming of the Northern Spy and how it got its name, another cohort of mine, Todd Little-Seabold, we realized years later, we were both kind of semi-stalking John Bunker. And after his talks, I would track him down, and year after year after year, I would talk to him about the Northern Spy. He'd share information. And after 10 or so years of doing this, only once a year, he looked at me and he said, we never have time for chit chat. Are you from Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire? And I said, I'm from Winthrop, Maine. And he said, well, Winthrop, Maine was the mecca of apple production and apple exportation, and more varieties of apples were found and produced in Winthrop than any town or city in the state of Maine in the 1800s. Orchardists flocked to Winthrop because of the soil, and the Winthrop Center Road in particular. I have started making a map, which you will see at the very end. It's very crude. and one by one have discovered all the different orchards. There's still some that are I have not figured out yet. I have actually started knocking on people's doors. Fortunately, I made a business card so that they don't think I'm selling something and slam the door in my face. But you know, John Bunker was that inspiration of be an apple detective. And I can't hold a candle to him, but I'm trying. So he's passing the torch to many other people. So Mary Richards and I were on a committee together called Winthrop Unites, and our little group would meet, and I would chit chat about my apple adventures. And she asked me to do a talk last year, so I started researching, and just never stopped. I'm already working on part 3. If you want me back, there's just so much out there, and it's wonderful. So in that whole segue, I found out that Pete and Mary have a Fairbanks tree. And it's very, very rare. It's an heirloom. And the Heritage Orchard has taken scions about 10 years ago, Pete? 10 years ago?
That's my recollection that the folks took the first one. Is that was the first plan that paid much attention?
John Bunker actually took some years ago.
Well, I guess
Yeah, it was when
He
John
did,
came.
right,
Pete,
right.
so-
Yeah. So let me just start the slides, and we'll reference a little bit more details on that. So, all right, let's see if this works. Right or left, Linda?
Pick one.
Left.
You got the wrong show now, Linda.
The other. I did.
The other left.
I'm
You must have the wrong situation,
Linda.
because it was working this afternoon.
Oh wait. Oh, here we go.
There you
Okay,
go.
all right.
You got it.
I'm rolling it.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Rolling.
So,
Rolling.
So how's about them apples, Winthrop? There are a few little photos here and there that I've just thrown in there. They're the Pomological Society of Winthrop of the state of Maine met here at the Old Town Hall many times throughout the years. This is a picture of John Bunker and Frances Fenton. And this is a long time ago. John is the mentor that I mentioned. This is how I research. I collect books. I tracked down a really old, rare book in Portland, and it was actually in the library from Cincinnati, Ohio. Mr. Ron Clay and I took a look at that earlier. So, and it was a history of Winthrop. Ended up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Another picture of John Bunker and another lovely lady, and someone by the name of Betsy Steen, who I knew long ago. Some of you might recognize this gentleman, Mr. Bob Pelletier. So Bob came to the talk last year. He was actually the superintendent of schools at Oak Hill High School when I graduated many years ago. And I came to the town hall to borrow this photo, which is right here, and you can look at it afterwards. It's really hard to see, but on this side is an old orchard, and that's Maranacook. And that is, help me out here, the body of water in Abusacook. Right. And way over was another orchard called the Woodman Orchard. So I'm tracking down slowly all the different areas of different orchards. So when I came to the town office to see if I could borrow this, Mr. Pelletier was walking in and he says, oh, well, I have a larger one down at Pat Ladd's Realty. So he brought me down and he said, oh, I have a file for you because when I came to your talk last year, I started taking notes. So he just handed me a file folder of different notes that he'd been taking since last year. And that's what I need. You know, if anyone here has information, you know, grandma's old orchard, where the favorite tree was, see me afterwards and we can exchange some information. This is just something cool that I found at the Highmore farm. It was, someone took an apple and pressed it. I would like to know what that's called, if anyone knows, is artistic here. But we don't know what kind of, it's this king or something, but we're not sure. Anyway, so here's the Fairbanks tree, and this is Laura Seeger. Laura oversees the Heritage Orchard and Unity, and a group of us went out to take a look at the Fairbanks tree. We actually took some scions. I have some here somewhere.
That's
And
not
I'll explain that in a second. Oh, wait, that's not the, nope, that's a different one. Okay, here's the Fairbanks tree. This was another tree of interest that we took
That's
a look
another
at.
tree we have that
Right,
hasn't
right.
been named yet.
So this is the Fairbanks tree. So Laura and I and Zach and Pete and Dr. Larry Bougia. Am I
Bougie.
saying Bougie? He was the veterinarian in Monmouth for a very long time. He's also part of the Monmouth Apple Museum.
The Historical Society, at least.
Okay, so we all went out to take a look at the tree. This is Laura taking scions because when John Bunker came 8 to 10 years ago, they took scions that engrafted onto other trees, and they had viable Fairbanks trees, and unfortunately with the drought, they died. So they have taken scions, and these ones also didn't take, so we're going to have to do it again.
Oh my goodness.
A few other people took scions. I'm not sure if anyone's took. Mine did not. So we'll give it another go in the spring. Well, this is Laura here. So we are slowly, this is early spring. So you don't see how much overgrowth there is, but there's a lot of invasive species around this tree. So we're slowly cleaning out. When we were all there looking at the tree, Zach from Absalom Cidery noticed that the power lines go right over the tree. And then we started realizing that all these limbs here, Central Maine Power had been contracting people and they were cutting the tree. So I called CMP, they listened. I ended up calling who they contracted, a tree company local, and then I ended up calling Chinbro. And all three were very receptive. They are actually moving the power lines off the tree, and they're not limbing it anymore. So yes, so the spring before there were a few apples, but the drought, they all dropped. This is this year. So the side that we cleaned off the most has a lot of apples, and in fact the apple pie that I brought tonight has Fairbanks apples in it. And there they are, the Fairbanks apples. So I'm going to pass them around. You can take a look. These have not been treated. We are going to start pruning this tree. They have not been sprayed. And I just wanted you, the apple that's cut in half, take a look at that. When I made my apple pie this morning, I didn't have to cut any worms out. I mean, there are a few here and there. There's spots on the apples, but give me the birds and the bees, right? How old is it? It's very old. I'm going to read you something about this tree. And it tastes delicious. Feel free to, I have a whole bunch if you would like to try one, go right ahead. So the whole reason the tree got discovered is because John Bunker put up a wanted poster, and that's right on the front of your brochure. What John Bunker would do is he would, at Mafia events, at Common Ground Fair, and other Apple Talks, he would put up a poster and say, I'm looking for the Ben Davis, or I'm looking out for the Fairbanks. And Pete's and Mary's daughter noticed the little wanted poster and said, Dad, I think we have one of those. So John Bunker was very, very excited. So as it says here, Elijah Fairbanks was born in 1756. He died at age 97 in 1853. He was almost as old as Francis Fenton, and that's a whole other talk. He was the gentleman in the photo with John Bunker, the first one. He planted an apple tree that bears his name on June 9th, 1779. Let me say that again, June 9th, 1779. So do the math. Who's good at math? 2023 minus 1779 equals
45,
245?
because it's 8 years after Winthrop was founded.
Okay.
And Winthrop is now 253, if you're right.
I was thinking 245 or 247. So those apples that you're looking at, is from a tree that's 245 years old. How amazing is that, folks?
It's
How
crazy.
amazing is that?
It's crazy. It's right in the middle of the pasture.
So there's something significant about the date of June 9th, 1779. Is there any history buffs here? Anyone? Does it ring a bell? June 9th, 1779 is the day that General Francis McLean and the British Royal Navy attacked and occupied Castine at the mouth of the Kennebec River. Significant day. Significant.
And he was planning apple trees.
So they don't know if he did that on purpose. I mean, if you think of how communication happened back then, I don't know how he would have known that that happened. So I think it's a complete coincidence, but someone figured that out.
Hmm.
So as the story goes, Daniel Allen Fairbanks, who was the grandson of one of the Fairbanks, said that the native tree was killed by hogs, which were kept in the orchard and stripped the bark. There were several trees of the Fairbanks variety in the town, and they engrafted this variety. The Deacon Williams helped to engraft some of these trees. And the grandson went on to say, every person who knows this apple values them highly. So the fact that you see this apple, yes, it has the spots and everything. It hasn't been, as I said, no one has pruned it, no one's taken care of it. The skin is amazing. And so this is why people like Morris Toll, who lived on the Winthrop Center Road, John Bunker, that's why it's so important to keep this tree alive. Not just because it's 245 years old. It probably has vitamin content that's amazing. It doesn't bruise easily. It's good for packing. It tastes delicious. And it's an old heirloom variety. So it's really important to try to keep this alive. So we are going to take more scions, as I said, and graft to try to keep this alive, because we don't know what's going to happen to this tree. It's lasted all these years. Why? We don't know. Is there something special about this tree that has kept it alive? And is this something like we're going to bring to Mars someday because it survived so well all these years? Is there something about this tree that makes it survive more than others? Orcharding is hard work. From the 1700s, the 1800s, to the 1900s, there's been 2 major freezes that decimated apple orchards in the whole country, in New England and in Maine, to the point that orcharding, some people stopped planting orchards because all their orchards were, their trees froze and burst. The trees actually exploded. And that second time that the big freeze happened, that's when you started seeing a lot of these heirlooms disappear. People wanted apple trees like the McIntosh that would produce high mass apples that tasted delicious, that were pretty. A lot of the heirloom apples don't have that, that beautiful luster. And let me stay on task here because I segue a lot. So we'll go back to some more details. I had a friend who made a little sign when we were trying to get a hold of CMP and Chinbro and everybody. He made this little sign for me. We'd like to eventually put a proper tag on the tree of significance. And rumor has it there might be an event at Absalom Cidery in which we'll pass the tip jar around to raise funds to get a proper tag for the tree. This is the Poor Farm, which was the Fairbanks farm. And that's where Pete and Mary Richards live today. This is it a watering trough, Pete? Watering trough. I don't know. We should really do a little scavenger hunt of all the different icons in Winthrop. There's some really amazing watering troughs of significance, little signs. Someone just showed me there's a plaque, not the Winthrop Center Road. What's the one that offshoots?
South Street, South Road.
South Road. There's a plaque that commemorates where Timothy Foster's home was. And Timothy Foster was one of the first settlers here in Winthrop. It's kind of hidden in the bushes along the stone wall, and I think it's right next to
Birchwood.
To what?
Birchwood.
Birchwood, right. Dr. Simbranowicz's house. That's how I know it. Okay. moving along. So if you look at this cutting here, there's lots of different ways to identify a particular apple. The reason I did this is to show the oxidation, thank you. One of the things that commercial orchardists, they want an apple that doesn't do this. And this is a sign that this is an heirloom when you see this this process. So this is what I want to see when I eat an apple. I don't want it to look pretty. This is just a cool picture. I'm fortunate that I live in the back of Lakeside Orchards, so I walk here a lot. I just thought it was really cool that there's this rock growing in that tree. I'm fortunate to walk all year round in Lakeside, walking, snowshoeing, and skiing. Moving right along. This is Mr. Mark Griswold, and I'm going to let him stand up just for a second, if that's okay, and introduce himself.
Harvesting farms.
And Mark planted how many trees?
820
Wow. Okay.
dwarf trees, little guys.
So this is the only pick your own apple orchard in Winthrop, folks. And so please check them out. They're right on Route 202. Mark started as a flower farm, correct? Your own?
We did flowers and apples at the same
Okay.
time, but the flowers were ready to pick before the apples.
Right.
And
So I'm really, really happy that there's orcharding again in Winthrop. There are a lot of old abandoned orchards or people who have farms or orchards on their own property, and we'll talk about that a little bit. This is the future of Winthrop apples right here, folks. This is a photo I just took recently of some, I believe these are Paula Reds, I'm pretty sure. Of which the winning apple pie was made with Paula Reds tonight. This is Mark. I went to interview him and introduce myself when I found out that he had apples. Are you planting more by chance?
I think I'm done with apples.
Yeah, that's a lot. 820 trees is a lot. That's a lot of work.
We have 60 peach trees. I may plant another row of peaches.
Wonderful. How are they doing?
They're doing great except for this year. There are no peaches in Maine this year because of the freeze, but the trees are healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
So orcharding, you have to worry about pests. You have to worry about weather. You have to prune them. When your fruit drops, you should always pull the fruit away, whatever you don't use for drops, because it just increases infestation of bugs. And then you're dealing with blight and you're dealing with funguses. It's hard work. So when you go and pick your apples or your peaches, just make sure that you thank your orchardist. Yeah, there it is, the Paula Red. And I love this picture. Mark shared that with me. This is when they first planted all their trees. Who was that with you, Mark?
My friends Jeffrey and Karen. Yeah, they helped a lot.
They helped plant the
It was a big
trees.
job. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
plus another 7 or 8 friends.
Wonderful.
And they're
that's a
actually
lot.
still my friends now. I'm surprised.
That's a great shot. So please do check them out. This is a picture of the Clement farm. And so this is one of my on the Winthrop Center Road. They have 2 or 3 trees that are still bearing fruit. This is, anyone know what this is? It's a stencil for a barrel. And this is an original stencil from the Clement farm. And one of the descendants, Lori Lee, who lives on the Case Road, let me borrow this. I can't let anyone else touch it. I believe it's made out of copper. So there were 2 Clements. This is right on the corner of Narrows Pond and
135, Winthrop Center Road.
Winthrop Center Road. So if you're gonna bang a right onto Narrows, it's right there. It's a large barn. I just took a picture of the back of it because it looked more old. So where I put my glasses? Oh, right there. There were 2 Clement brothers. So Walter Clement was Lori's grandfather, owned Clement's Market in West Roxbury, Massachusetts. The Elms was their farm in Maine. and they sent produce to Massachusetts. This copper stencil was covered with black paint when my great aunt Ruth gave it to me early in my marriage. I have no idea what kind of apples the farm grew. All the trees are long gone, and actually that's not true. There's a few there. The houses in attached barn are all that's left, and so it's on 135 South and the Narrows Pond Road. So what else she shared with me is that there were paddle boats on the Kennebec, and they had their own barrels, and they would mark the stencil. This says minimum volume 3 bushels, unclassified. Packed by W.A. Clement, The Elms, Winthrop, Maine. So I'll get a picture of that later, and maybe we can archive that. But they would send the apples down the Kennebec all the way down to Boston and sell them at a fruit market. So, okay, let's see. When I went to the Clement farm, these are some of the apples I found. There's some crabs there, and there's some very strange fruit up in the left. I'm not sure what that is. I'd like to go back and look at it again. If anyone here has any clue at all, no idea.
What's the textures and what I don't just want to say pop-ups.
I have one at home and I'll bring it to you. It's maybe it's pop-up. I don't know. It's interesting. So, but that just goes to show, orchardists didn't plant just apples. They planted pears and grapes and peaches and all kinds of different things. And so I'd love to try to figure out what that is, and if it is, I have a feeling it is indeed original to the farm. More apples. When you're identifying a particular kind of apple, if you have apple trees, we cut it in half. We take a look at the top. We took a look at the bottom. We also look at the tree itself. Was it grafted or is it a seedling? Does anyone know the difference between a seedling and a grafted apple tree? Would you care to speak up?
Well, the graft can be on any rootstock,
Correct.
and the seedling is
Chance seedling. Right.
yeah, chance. Right.
So this here is a Winthrop greening from the Morris Toll orchard on the Winthrop Center Road. Morris Toll had a lot of old varieties, and he passed them on to Witt at Witt's Orchard on the Case Road. If you took a seed from this apple, it would not grow a Winthrop greening. Does everyone understand that? Okay. To get a Winthrop greening, you have to take a scion and graft it onto another tree. Apples are just like you and I. They have similar DNA patterns. We don't make the same child every time unless it's twins or triplets. So if a chance seedling is if this fell on the ground or a deer ate it and carried it off and a tree grew, it would be its own tree. You can name it whatever you want. It would not be a Winthrop greening. So I can pass some of these around. This is currently Derek Glazier and his wife Bridget own the Morris Toll orchard, very, very old orchard. I scioned. I'll mention that after. I'm going to try not to segue too much, and we'll talk about that at the very end. These are russets, and this is from Witt's Orchard. Witt's Orchard, if you see on your brochure the picture of all the children. So a family now owns that. It was Kennebec Cider at one time. And another family took it over. The Kennebec Cider, there were two different families that owned Kennebec Cider, and their families grew and grew. And now another family is there. And they are collaborating with some local cideries. So this picture here, I actually don't know what kind of apple this is. I know Zach has been to this particular orchard, to Witt's Old Orchard. One of the reasons I showed the picture is because of the red color.
So they have a wine kiss, which is a red-fleshed apple, which was commonly grown in Winthrop. They also have, I don't know how to say it, it's a Russian apple pie that's also
Red Astrakhan.
No,
No.
it's like Nita Sawa or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
also a red fleshed apple that was originally grown in Russia. It was also brought to this place, but it also creates a red colored fruit, which also makes red juice. So you can use it for wine.
So this is just another picture of just, different varieties. I believe that is, the smaller one is the Dalgo.
They've got multiple different products.
What would you, how would you describe the Dalgo, Zach?
So those are a super tart crab apple that were meant for jelly. They really set well with jelly. They're high acid content, unless the kind of set well with sugar and still holding flavors. That's kind of originally what Dalgo was developed.
So they're great for balancing ciders, correct?
Ciders, jams, and pies.
So the apple pie I made tonight had russets from East Winthrop, Doggos from East Winthrop, and the Fairbanks apple. All from Winthrop Orchards. And here we have Absalom cider. And I was gonna see if Zach would actually just stand up for a second. Thank you, Zach, for coming.
Thanks for waiting.
They both presented tonight, Mark and Zach. So, Zach, I'll let you take it away with introducing your crew here. If that's okay with you.
So yeah, that's my business partner Kevin on my left side. And my business partner Ryan. Kevin's a true Mainer. He's been here his whole life, but grew up in Falmouth. And I'm a transplant from New Jersey, unfortunately. And my business partner Ryan's from Maryland, but all kind of loved coming up to Maine and wanted to settle here to start fermentation business. So found this amazing barn that the attorney family owned and purchased from them, and then I've turned it into so we manufacture hard cider on the property. We have 60 acres and we're planting 120 apple trees.
This is some of their product. You can pass it around.
So yeah, we make hard cider and maybe someday fresh cider as well for sale. Yeah, just getting started. Only been open for like a year and a half, so still early days.
But wonderful product. They have a lovely dry ciders. They also have food trucks, and they also have beer and wine available too if you're not a cider person. So, and they have about 150,000 chickens. Running around.
150,000.
Over 150 chickens of different
You
varieties.
can buy eggs.
Right.
I knew you, but you're out of your element.
I know.
So the cider industry is taking off. Maine is known for their craft beers, and Maine is finally getting recognized for cider. So speaking of cider, cider's been around a really long time. I'm going to read a little something out of a history book of Winthrop. And this is the history of Winthrop from 1764 to October 1855 by David Thurston. And it says here, the first cider made in the town was from the orchard of Mr. Ichabod Howe, on the place now occupied by Mr. Moses Hanson and Mr. John Stanley. They had neither cider mill nor press, but thirsting for a beverage to which they were formerly accustomed as almost one of the necessaries of life, but had been now for a long time without, with true Yankee ingenuity, they pounded a quantity of apples in a sap trough and extracted the juice in a cheese press. In this way, they obtained a few gallons. All the neighbors, and in parentheses it says, and that included a long distance, were invited to come and partake of it as a rare luxury. Since the temperance and reformation has led men to quit drinking cider so generally, very little has been made to use as a beverage. And it goes on and on. So the temperance era was significant in Maine at one time. So there were many people who finally did have their cider mill in the basement or the barn, under the cover of night. All right. Let's see what the next slide says. I think it's more, yeah. Okay, I snuck in and took a picture of some exact barrels. So a lot of hard work, folks. They have, how many different ciders do you have? right now.
23 different ones right now,
Wow.
but
That's
always
really-
making more.
Right. So 23 different kinds that you can get. So hop on over Friday night, folks. Saturday, Sunday. Actually, are you guys gonna be open with the hurricane?
We'll be open Friday and Sunday this week, and we have a wedding on Saturday.
Okay, all right.
Oh, no.
So go on over Friday or Sunday.
That's when the hurricanes came.
This is that sequence, but this is the old Wicks Orchard.
Oh, beautiful.
And this here is the future, folks. These are children that are in the neighborhood at Wicks Old Orchard. And I took a picture of them last year, and actually Sarah's here, one of the neighborhood children.
She's
Oh, there she
Yeah.
is.
And the youth group got together at the Stevens house at Woods Orchard and had a cider press with the kids, and we had a blast.
So they press their own fresh cider of all the apples from Wicks Orchard. And any idea how many gallons you made?
Oh my goodness, no, everybody took the way crazy.
She's got plenty in her hand.
So gallons and gallons, yes.
Mhm.
All right, so this is my very crude map. This is the next talk, folks.
That's a good one.
Literally, very crude. So as you can see, I start out at Absalom. So where Absalom Cidery is, it was called the Fox Farm. And when Ryan and Kevin and Zach decided to move to Maine, they randomly picked this particular farm for many, many reasons, not realizing that the entire Winthrop Center Road was all orchardists. So from Absalom down, there's the Clark Farm. There's the Bailey Manor, and which was Littman's later, where they grew Paula Reds. And all those trees are gone now. It's solar panels. I do believe there might be a couple of trees hiding way, way, way over. I'm gonna knock on that person's door and see if they'll let me go in their backfield. You keep going down, but before you get to Morris Toll, there is something called Rosewood. Anyone know what Rosewood is? If you do, let's talk after. There's some very old, interesting trees there. I did knock on their door. They looked at me kind of funny, but they did call me back. So I have to go interview them. And then you have Morris Toll, and you keep going down. I'd like to know where the East Winthrop line is, if anyone knows that. But all up and down, there are also some chance seedlings. I found some crabs. If you go across 202 on the Old Village Road, there's two very old apple trees on the left-hand side if you're headed towards the Case Road. And they were marked with pink tape, and I actually took the tape down, trying to save them. And I need to find out who owns the property, because I'd like to try to make sure that they don't get cut down. So I've pulled the tape off twice. Don't tell anybody.
I told you.
So far, they're still standing, and all the other trees have been cut down. And then there's Wicks Orchard, which was Kennebec cider. Somewhere, but just by chance, someone told me that at mailbox 641 on Winthrop Center Road, there was the Taylor Witham Orchard. So I need to find out more about that.
That's the one with the trophies.
With the trophies? Oh, did that come up? The
No,
trophy?
but
Oh, okay.
I can
All
go
right.
get.
All right, afterwards, we'll show you a really cool trophy. And then there's Juniper Hill, and their trees are very young, but some very delicious apples. I've made cider out of them many times. I collect apples all up and down Old Village Road and the Case Road and make an East Winthrop blend. I've made a nice sweet cider. I've made a hard cider that turned to vinegar, which is still good and viable for cooking. And last year I was very successful in making a cider, which is made with honey instead of sugar. And it actually turned out pretty good. I was really happy with it. There's an old farmstead on the Case Road, but there's no apple trees there except for one that's planted. And that's Wendy's house. And someone grafted like 3 or 4 different varieties on that one tree. It's a young tree, but I need to go back and take a look at that to see if that's still viable. And then on Wyman Farm Lane, where I live, on top of the hill, if you when you turn onto Wyman Farm Lane and go all the way down into the valley, the Wyman Farm was Central Maine Power Company. That was the original. That was their farm. The people who started Central Maine Power Company. It was the Wyman family. So there is one chance seedling apple tree on my property. It's very tall, and I've been trying to take care of it a little bit. Little tiny apples that the deer love. So my budding orchard, I haven't produced any fruit yet, but I'm hoping that maybe next year I'll have a few that are ready to bear fruit. So I'm hoping to have a really nice map for the next talk. And this is just a lovely photo that I took in Lakeside Orchards. So that is it for the presentation. If there's some questions and answers, I can do my best. And I wanted to first say, I forgot to say this part, I'm not an expert, I'm an enthusiast. Oh, right there. So feel free to come on up. If you want to look through some of my research. Oh, science. Actually, I think Zach can actually scientifically say that better than I can. You mind coming on up here, Zach?
Sure, yes. Science are
I
just
didn't like not being
cuttings
able
from
to. Oh, here it is, right here.
basically new growth on the trees, and Mark probably knows more than I do. I don't know why I'm talking.
There you go.
Yeah, they're new growth on trees that you can cut off and basically Frankenstein, put them onto other trees
that's
by
what I'm-
grafting them on. And that's how you transcend history, keep these
If I do
new
this, what is
varieties going. Somebody's had, some
Where-
human hand.
No, no, am I in Zoom or?
You know, grafted this tree onto another tree. So that's kind of a cool concept.
Sure.
That all these
Enjoy.
named after
Sure,
varieties,
stop.
someone has done that. Which I understand.
And the good part about these Frankenstein scion trees is you can choose a rootstock that works
Can you
well
zoom in
for
on the
the
apples?
climate and the soil type you have, and then the varieties that grow, the varieties grafted onto that. You can get color red or, you know, Shizuka or whatever. So if you have a dwarfy rootstock, it won't grow too high.
Share the map on.
Perfect for whatever climate.
Can you share the map on it?
So they, for me, when I bought trees, I had, you know, orchards who were really good at it, made the trees a year in advance. and
Except this
set
was
them.
all over to see the school. I need a copy of that. Is that
This is 1930.
It's the 19th. Oh, in 2013. That's the photograph. I thought you right. Thank you. Yeah, I will in just a sec. So, but just to segue onto the scions, one thing I didn't mention is identifying apples. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways that we identify an apple. We can now test the DNA of apples. It's super cool. We gather leaves. Springtime is the best, and we send them to a place. I'm not remembering where it is, but we can literally figure out the DNA and the parentage of apple trees, just like you do DNA testing with humans. So I'd love to bring some of our folks, our team, to the Fairbanks in the spring and grab some leaves and test it. We can find out for parents of the Fairbanks, and we can actually 100% confirm that's a Fairbanks. We're probably like 97% certain. The other thing we can do is people who want to know how old their tree is, to prove it, you can do a coring and find out how old it is. Once we really 100% know if what a tree is, there's something called registry in North America, and we mark the tree on a map. So the state of Maine right now, any tree that's been identified, we mark it on a particular map. We take coordinates. So we're going to be actually adding the Fairbanks to the registry mapping. So referencing, does anyone know this poster?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Once DNA started being tested, John Bunker made this poster. It's amazing. It's one of my favorites. So we have figured out 3 or 4 of these apples are not what they said they were. And some of them, I can't remember which ones in particular, but we're actually thrilled. And we're trying to, I think one of them is the Dudley Winter. I could be wrong on that, but there's 3 or 4 of these are not what we thought they were when they were identified, and that's okay. It's a mystery. but, we'll try to figure it out. So, okay, another question.
I have two.
Yes,
First, as you're going down Winter Center Road, you're heading to 202.
yes,
I noticed there's a house in the back, but all in front of the house, all these apple trees.
right.
Do you know what kind of apples are here?
I do not. That is actually part of the there's two, if it's what I'm thinking of. The Morris Toll Orchard is both of those properties, but the property was split. And there's two separate homeowners and they each orchard differently, is what I'm going to say.
Is that something you can find out?
I actually do have a map
Mhm.
of the orchard. I just don't remember what they are.
The second question
Yes.
is, we're in Lower Narrows Pond. When my wife was a little girl, she said, across the way on the causeway, there was a big apple orchard there. Is there any way with history, either through photograph, I mean, we're gonna go back probably to the 60s.
I will track it down.
Any way to find out what kind of apple could have been grown?
I will track it down. See me after. Yeah, anyone who has any reference or something interesting, I'm gonna get a piece of paper and just put your name and address and phone number, email address, and it's gonna take me about 10 years, folks, to get through this. I'm hopefully eventually going to write a book about all of this research, pamphlet, a book, we'll see. That's my end goal.
People who live there now were there at least in the 70s.
Okay, so you already know something about
One of
this.
their kids was in Sarah's class.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
There's
Six
just,
years.
yeah, there's lots of different ways of tracking things down. At last year's talk, 2 or 3 people came up to me and said, oh, I have this information and this information and this information. So there's a lot of stuff I didn't even mention tonight, folks, which is why I'm hopefully eventually going to be writing a book. So.
Good.
Any other questions? Yes.
Just wanted to follow up on 2 things. You sort of mentioned the science that Kerry was mentioning. Another Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners event is every spring there's a science exchange. And it's not just apple trees, but people can bring cuttings from your trees and swap them with other people who might want to graft your one on yours and you can pick up theirs. And it's a really fun event and they do other things the
Right.
same day. And then Kerry mentioned, and you might talk about it more, the Heritage Orchard at Sonka. And just want to let people know that that was a project, John Booker and several other people, I was on the board at Hopkins, and so we want to really reclaim all of these main heirloom apples. And originally 500 different varieties, so we can come up to Unity at the fair or common ground or other times of the year. There are these heirloom apples, Laura, who Kerry showed. There, you know, those ones may have not made it originally, but most of them, they've really gotten to do wonderfully. They reclaimed an old gravel pit.
Right.
It was in a horrible shape and they worked with the Army Corps of Engineers and other people who say this is not being used, but we could turn it into this Heritage Orchard and that common ground. There are tours of both that Heritage Orchard and 2 other big apple plots off there. Probably say more about all exciting stuff.
It
And
is,
a lot of
and
the varieties that Kerry just mentioned are there.
going back to the Winter Center Road for a sec, you know, all these orchards that I'm discovering, old ones and some that we do know of, all these orchardists in, you know, 1700s, they started selling, 1800s is when the big boom was. The soil was exceptional here, and that's why they started coming here. The whole of Winthrop Center Road, and then it's spread all over town. There's orchards everywhere but I'm concentrating on Winthrop Center Road and East Winthrop for right now. These orchardists shared silence. They shared, you know, what apple tree bore fruit, which one didn't bruise, which one tasted good, which was a taster, which was a spitter. Anyone know what that means? Taster and a spitter. A taster is something that's delicious, and a spitter is something you spit out. But the spitters are important because they help balance hard cider. So just a wealth of orchardists and just rediscovering all these orchards. A lot of the trees aren't there. Some of them are. Some of them are coming back to life because of the chance seedlings. So very exciting stuff. So
People on Zoom wanted to see your apples.
oh, okay. Sure. That's
Still there.
How do we do that?
You just do it and.
Okay. Oh, and there's
I'll
one
try it.
yeah, so this is a russet, and I actually don't know what kind of russet. I'm not sure if Zach might know. Where do I go with this?
You have to go up.
Okay,
Well,
tell me when.
this is hard to do when I'm doing that. There you go.
These are russets from which orchard?
And you can't really see them. Can you come closer?
You
Want to just close it.
Bring them over to me.
Yes.
And that way I'll have to go back and forth. Thank you.
One more time.
There, now, Carrie, they can,
Okay.
you tip it, they'll be
All
able to
right, so
see.
these are russets from Witt's Orchard right here. They're delicious. It's almost like a pear apple. How would you describe it, Zach? A russet?
I think that's gray pear. I think it's gray pear.
Gray pear Maine. It's absolutely delicious. It was in my apple pie. Thank you. These are Paula Reds. I actually got these in up north near Burnham, but was excited to find them. You don't see them all the time. But Paula Reds were grown in the Lippman Orchard, which was formerly Bailey Manor. Oop,
There you
okay,
go.
There we go. Okay. And I happen to know someone, she's 80 something. She was the field boss at Lippman's Orchards. And back, Mr. Lippman hired her as the field boss because he liked how she worked with, being the boss. And a few of the men were not really happy about it. And Mr. Lippman said, if you're not happy with her being the field boss, then you can just walk out the door. So he really stood up for her. All right, there's that one. This is the Fairbanks. This is the one that's 245 years old, folks, right here. Absolutely delicious.
Not the apple.
Right, but the fact that a tree that's 245 years old still bears apples and was part of my apple pie tonight, my apple crumble. This is not from Winthrop, but it's just super cool. It is a Wolf River, and this is one of the smaller ones. Okay, there we go. This is one of the smaller ones.
That's a small.
This is their Wolf Rivers are huge. This is half the size.
Wow.
Yes.
Where do you buy them?
You don't buy them. That's
Well,
just
Grow
it.
them.
They're an heirloom. It could. Yeah. Yep, you can.
That's the tail is that one Wolf River can make one apple pie.
Correct. So it's, yep. I just happen to, as a hospice nurse, whenever I'm washing my hands at the kitchen sink and looking out the window, if I spy an apple tree, I ask them, and I noticed this one right away, and I was like, wow. And so they let me pick a whole bunch of these Wolf Rivers. So this is actually from Pittston.
Doesn't Bailey Orchard have those?
I would have to find out. I really don't know. That would be great if they did, because you don't find them very often. Okay, these are the Dalgos. This is also from Witt's Orchard, and I'm pretty sure the Dalgos are also in the Morris Toll Orchard.
I'm actually, those might not be Dalgos,
Uh-oh.
but
The
they
plate
are-
says it is.
They're cute.
It might be Kerr crab.
Can you spell that?
K-E-R-O.
Oh, okay.
Kerr crab.
Oh, did you pick all the Dalgos, Zach?
No, I didn't pick all.
Okay,
You can never pick all.
okay. So my apologies if this is not the Dalgo. You're probably right.
That is your Kerr crab.
Okay, this is and is it considered a crab?
Considered a crab.
Okay.
How do you tell the difference there?
The New Meadows Road.
Because he
Well,
picks
those are a
most.
little bit longer and
You know where
more
Whitefield is,
narrow.
like,
Okay.
or something?
Circular.
Yeah.
And they're different flavors as well.
And these are like delicious. They're tart.
You could actually like genuinely eat.
Yes, I just nibbled one. Anyone want one? And then this here is, this is from the Morris Toll, and it's the Winthrop Greening, and you don't see this very often, the Winthrop Greening. And this looks great. There were none last year because of the drought. And this year there's, Derek Glazier was kind enough to gift me a few Winthrop Greenings. The Winthrop Greening, interestingly enough, the Pomological Society came out with a rave review about the Winthrop Greening, and about 10 years later, they said it was subpar because other apples were more popular.
Yeah.
So, but it's a cool apple to me. So
it's still going then?
it's still going. Derek Glazier picked these for me from the North Toll Orchard on the Winthrop Center Road. Fedco sells them, yes. Check out the Fedco seed catalog because they are, let's see what kind of, somebody just got a tree. There was a sale at the Vaughn Estate, wasn't there?
Not that I know.
No? Okay. Yes.
So all these different types of apples,
Yes.
what are the owners doing with these apples?
Talking to me. No, they're not selling them. We're tracking them down. I'm not the only person interested. I have John Bunker, Todd Little-Sebold is a professor at the College of the Atlantic, but he's also an apple nerd, what I refer to as malus absurdum. Malus absurdum in Latin means apple nerd. We are obsessed with apples and trying to find these old varieties. So we literally knock on people's doors and say, can we take a cutting from your tree?
But what are they actually doing with all these apples that come off? the
Nothing.
tree?
Nothing. They just
Nothing.
sit
They're in
there.
their backyards.
Yeah, and they fall off the
The
tree.
deer look cute eating them.
Okay,
The porcupines eat them. Some people actually know, okay, this is a really great apple for apple pie. I have literally knocked on people's doors all up and down the Case Road and said, can I have your apples for my apple cider?
okay, got it.
Right. So,
Yeah, and at Kennebec Cider Orchard, some of those apples go into our cider, so I've been picking some of their apples this year.
right,
They're not going to waste.
correct.
You can come
And-
take them anytime you want.
We're frequent customers. We recommend.
Yay, yes, yes, love Absalom. So, anyone else? Any other questions? Feel free to come up and take a look at some of the,
Oh, I brought the thing up. Carrie, I don't know what you want to say.
oh, okay, yes, the trophy. There was a picture that went with it.
This one?
Yes. Can we pass that around? Is that all right?
I don't know.
Okay, so, do you want to come this way?
It's part of the collection, so.
Okay, so,
Anne should be touching it.
yep, so the Augusta Board of Trade offered by the Pomological Society Best Kennebec Company Fruit Exhibit. And this is it right
the
here.
Taylor,
Come on over here.
what was the other word? Taylor Witham Farm. which is
Taylor
on-
Witham Farm,
Almost to Absalom.
which is mailbox.
And they called
641.
it Orchard Slope Farm.
Orchard Slope, oh,
And
okay.
Catherine
That's mailbox 641, the
Catherine-
Taylor Witham.
Witham wrote a wonderful story about her life with her father growing these apple orchards. I mean, apples.
So maybe if you come up closer, the display is just amazing.
I'll just put it
It
on
is
the table.
Just amazing. And this was a big deal, folks, back then, to
If
do
anybody
something
can
like this.
ID where they are. That'd be great.
Just like apple pie bake-offs were a big deal. So I'm hoping, thanks everyone who participated in the apple pie bake-off, for those of you on the Zoom.
So that was on there. There is, if you look at that picture, you'll see this on one of the
You want to come over
barrels.
this way? So we can see it?
It's stark.
Stark. Oh, it's dark apples. Yes. So, thank you, everybody. I'm hoping that we'll have an annual apple pie bake-off. Thank you, everyone who brought the apple pies. Thank you for those who judged. Thank you for those who ate the apple pie. And, come on up if you want to look through anything. I have a interesting way of keeping all my research together.
You should come back.
So, thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. You're awesome.
Oh, who's that?
Rhea Windcaller.
Rhea Windcaller of Spider Chat, folks. She zoomed in. Okay. Yes. Rhea Windcaller interviewed me on my Northern Spy adventures. Do you remember what episode it was, Rhea?
Oh, no. There's like almost 400.
In the 400s. Rhea Windcaller interviewed me on my Northern Spy research, my trek to New York twice. So you can Google Kerry Wilkins. Who named this apple? I think is what you called it.
Yeah. I wish I had it present, but I don't. But it's
That's
in there.
okay. But
Yeah.
people can, I can share with people the information afterwards. Thanks for listening, Rhea.
Yeah, well done. Thank you.
I'm gonna go raise a glass.
Okay, good. Cheers. And hi to Zach.
Oh, hi, Zach. That's Rhea Windcaller. Maybe he might come over real quick and say hi. Were there any questions on the Zoom?
Just the one
Hey, thank you for
about-
coming. Thank you.
Just can you show us the apple?
Oh, okay.
Because they couldn't. do it
Thank you,
this
everyone who
day.
zoomed in.
And they want to share the map. So
Oh, the map?
your lovely map. You put the Fairbanks on? Oh, because we had it on.
That's how you do it.
No. We're gonna copy it. and email it.
Okay, okay.
So if you could take a picture of it and email it.
Sure, I can do that.
helping everyone out. Figure out the answer questions.
All right. I'll call my brother. You're right. Okay, thanks.
Oh, dear.
Hi, thank you. How, did you get to hear any of it?
Yeah.
Let me turn this off.
I already turned my, I'm a fly off, so you can have
All right.
a private conversation.
All right.
with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Okay.
Amy Stevens says my grandmother was the Baptist temperance. Oops, she's not listening. We'll look at it later. I don't think it's going anywhere. Good stuff. No, it's still recording.
Yeah.